The WWE Universe is still processing the shockwaves of what may be the most historic and conversation-defining corporate decision in the history of professional wrestling, a decision so unprecedented and final that it will echo across the industry for decades, serving as the ultimate benchmark for discipline, authority, and accountability. Triple H, the Chief Content Officer, the Game, the King of Kings, and the architect of modern WWE's creative direction, has made a move that fans, critics, and insiders alike once thought impossible. He has fired Seth Rollins, not a mid-carder, not a developmental rookie, not even a fading star, but the reigning world heavyweight champion, a global icon whose music makes entire arenas erupt, whose face dominates merchandise stands, whose name is synonymous with main event glory. This was not rash, not impulsive, not done in the heat of a single argument. It was the culmination of years of growing tension, personal and professional conflict, unresolved betrayals, and one final act of deception that crossed every conceivable line. To grasp the magnitude of this seismic event, one must rewind the clock and look at the turbulent, combustible history between Triple H and Seth Rollins, a saga that began with promise and mentorship before spiraling into mistrust, rebellion, and ultimately an irreparable collapse. When Seth Rollins arrived in WWE, his raw talent was undeniable. He was a hybrid athlete capable of blending aerial daredevilry with technical brilliance, a performer who could dazzle crowds with his versatility and charisma. But along with that brilliance came arrogance, defiance toward authority, and an unwavering belief that he was destined for greatness on his own terms. Triple H saw the potential but also the danger, openly admitting years later that he considered firing Rollins during his early days because beyond the cocky attitude, he wasn't sure there was anything truly special. But instead of cutting him loose, Triple H gambled, molding Rollins, investing in him, elevating him to the grand stage, and making him into a star who could carry the company. That gamble seemed to pay off when Rollins became the crown jewel of the Authority, standing shoulder to shoulder with Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, holding championships, main-eventing pay-per-views, and enjoying levels of protection and creative backing that few in history have ever been afforded. Yet success bred entitlement. Rollins began to believe he was above the rules, immune to consequences, and indispensable to the system itself. When the Authority storyline dissolved, Rollins no longer had the same shield of political power, and the cracks began to widen. Creative disputes became more heated, and reports of backstage friction grew louder. Triple H, now fully stepping into his executive role, began seeing less of the hungry young talent he had mentored and more of a self-styled superstar who blurred the lines between his on-screen persona and his real-life ego. The infamous 2016 betrayal, when Triple H cost Rollins the Universal Championship, was scripted as one of the most shocking television moments of the decade, but behind the curtain it was also a reflection of genuine fractures in their professional relationship. The mistrust never fully healed. Over the years, Rollins leaned deeper into his eccentric, visionary persona, thrilling fans but testing management's patience with demands, arrogance, and clashes with creative direction. Reports painted a troubling picture of a man who undermined booking decisions, derailed production with last-minute changes, and fostered resentment among younger talent who struggled to break through his shadow. Yet, through all of it, Triple H kept him at the top, perhaps clinging to the idea that their shared history still counted for something, perhaps believing that Rollins' star power was worth the trouble. That loyalty, however, came crashing down in spectacular fashion at SummerSlam 2025. Publicly, Rollins had been declared too injured to compete, a revelation that devastated fans but also forced WWE to cancel appearances, shuffle creative plans, and provide medical accommodations. Triple H himself was reportedly deeply concerned, defending Rollins in internal meetings and urging the company to prioritize his long-term health. But the truth was a betrayal of biblical proportions. On the night of SummerSlam, Rollins shocked the world by appearing unannounced, perfectly healthy, to cash in his Money in the Bank contract and seize the championship in what was instantly one of the most viral moments in wrestling history. Fans erupted in joy, social media exploded, but backstage, the atmosphere was anything but celebratory. The truth emerged. Rollins had been training secretly for months, fully capable of competing, while deliberately feeding false injury reports to WWE's medical staff and executives. This was not an agreed storyline twist. It was a calculated act of deception, a manipulation of medical protocols, corporate resources, and the trust of those who had defended him. For Triple H, this was the unforgivable act. This was not kayfabe. This was sabotage. It was betrayal not just of him, but of the entire system he had worked to build. The backstage confrontation that followed has already become locker room legend, years of pent-up frustration boiling over in a fiery clash. Rollins, rather than apologizing, defended his actions as good business, brushing off the fallout and accusing WWE leadership of stifling his creativity. That was the breaking point. Triple H faced a clear, defining choice: continue enabling behavior that eroded trust and authority, or prove that even the biggest stars are not beyond consequences. He chose the latter. The termination was swift, cold, but airtight. WWE announced the decision with corporate precision, citing a consistent pattern of violations, insubordination, and an irreparable breach of trust. This was not suspension. This was not punishment for a single bad night. It was a permanent dismissal, carefully documented with medical records, internal correspondence, and prior warnings to ensure WWE was protected from any legal backlash. The reaction was immediate and divided. Younger talent felt an unexpected surge of respect for management, reassured that the toxic favoritism of the past would not return. Veterans admitted that Rollins had crossed a line that could not be excused. Fans across the world debated fiercely, some praising Triple H for taking a stand for professionalism, others devastated that one of WWE's most dynamic performers was gone. Creatively, WWE was thrown into chaos with a world title suddenly vacated mid-reign, forcing rapid rewrites and reshuffling of long-term plans. Financially, the hit was real, losing merchandise revenue, ticket draws, and global brand power that Rollins brought. But Triple H's stance did not waver. The integrity of the culture outweighed the dollars of the moment. And beyond the business fallout, there was something deeply personal in this severance. This was not just a boss firing a star. This was a mentor cutting ties with the man he had once protected, elevated, and trusted to carry the company into the future. It was the tragic final act of a relationship that began with belief and ended in betrayal. For Triple H, it was a sobering reminder that leadership sometimes demands sacrificing bonds for the sake of the greater whole. For Rollins, it was a brutal lesson that unchecked ego and disregard for authority can dismantle a career in an instant. In the grand scope of wrestling history, this decision will stand as one of the most definitive turning points of the modern era. It was not just an executive decision. It was a cultural declaration that talent without professionalism is worthless, that even the most decorated champions can fall if they undermine the system. It shattered the long-standing myth that top stars are untouchable, sending a message that no one, no matter how many titles they've held or how many arenas they've sold out, is above the rules. This will ripple for years, shaping locker room culture, influencing how talent carries themselves, and reminding everyone that respect for the business is as important as the performance inside the ring. And as the dust settles, one truth shines above all others: if Seth Rollins, the reigning champion, the global draw, the merchandising powerhouse, can be fired, then no one is untouchable.